Well, doing a lot of summer type work, trying to get the yard prepared and do a little gardening and things like that. Nothing to the extent or level that you do, but mine's more maintenance gardening. How about you, Jim? How's your garden coming along? I've been watching the videos as you move through the summer from seed to where we're at on your harvest now.
Really well. Tried a different approach this year. Planting clover in my rows and trying to plant everything so quick together. It's funny. I had shared that as a gardener, a lot of times gardening in the earth reiterates magical practices too.
Oh, absolutely.
When we banish, the earth wants to fill that void. So it's important to invoke those things that we want into our lives when we remove those things that we don't want, because nature will fill the void. And gardening's the same way. When you till the soil and you strip it bare, the earth is going to fill it with something because she doesn't want to be bare. So it might as well be things that are useful to you, like the plants or the vegetables or clover or something, which is much better than crabgrass. So.
I'm remembering how sweet and soft the grass was in upstate New York at my house in Watkins. It was just soft and what we would call golf grass down here, but it was long. And it was like laying in a really nice sort of a green little spa, especially in the spring when the temperatures were still nice and just coming back up, and that cloying lilac scent was all around.
Oh.
Well, like that grass. It's just beautiful.
It really is. Now, Jim, do you have a specifically magic garden in addition to all of your other things that you grow, where you specifically grow magical plants and do so in a ritual way?
I do have my herbs tucked in here and there. I have an herb garden, an herb spiral that has gotten out of control this year. What's bad is gardening time coincides with our busy time at work as well. So it's hard to get out there and maintain the way that I should. But I do have what I call my Lachnunga garden, if anyone's familiar with the Anglo-Saxon medicinal of performative speech. So I have all the herbs from the Lachnunga planted there, as well as a lot of other medicinal plants. I was out tending my hops and my angelica this evening, trying to get seeds from the angelica plants. So.
How do your hops grow? Do they do well?
My hops go crazy every single year, and I keep meaning to, they say that you can eat the young shoots like asparagus when they come up, and I keep meaning to do that because they are out of control. But I do like to save the hops and dehydrate them for pillows and teas and that sort of thing too.
Very nice.
Do either of you have a garden where you're at?
Too hot down here.
I'm taking a year off. I was too busy this spring, and so I didn't restart my garden. I do mostly herbs and a few vegetables and a lot of peppers. Love my peppers. I make pickled peppers and things, but my whole outdoor space needs a lot of work this year. And we couldn't. It was a bad spring too because we had rain all the way up until late June, and then it stopped. And now we're in a drought. So it's been a bad year for growing up this way.
You know what I miss? I miss terribly, and every summer now, as the older I get, being down here in South Florida, of course, DeSantis stopped most of our migrant farm workers, and they're gone, and a lot of crops have gone bad in the field, and there's not just the freshness of greenery, except for the green markets we have where people grow their own, and that's really beautiful. But when I lived in New York, I could drive, from Watkins to Canandaigua, and I'd go through so much farmland, and the farmers would have a truck, like a big truck or something, up by their mailbox with the crops out there, vegetables and corn, of course, following corn trucks, you can stop and pick up the corn from, the ag schools and stuff. But oh my gosh, I miss that. And they'd have a coin box, for paying for your vegetables and stuff. And every summer I think of it, and I think of the people who are enjoying that and the freshness and the sweetness of those crops, those vegetables and those herbs. They had little herb plants. Especially they're not Quakers. What are they over there near Penyan? The Macabites or something. But these farmers that live clean, and they put up such beautiful. And when end of spring and beginning, near the first harvest, near Lammas, near this time, you'll find that they put out little jars of jams and jellies. Oh my gosh, do I miss that so much. I miss that so much.
I'll have to buy you some jams and jellies and send them down there. They're just starting all those, and the garlic fests are starting up here. So.
Oh yeah.
And each, all the farmers have little farm stands, and they sell all their stuff. And there's a whole garlic fest, so it's like you drive like down 100-mile stretch, and there must be 100 little farm booths and things. A lot of fun.
Down near the lake with the independent little vineyards and stuff, there were people who were growing, certain farmers would grow and vintners would grow table grapes, and you never tasted such sweet table grapes in your life. They'd put pounds on you. They were so sweet. Beautiful table grapes. Oh my gosh, I can remember how my mom enjoyed them.
Yeah, I think the Finger Lakes has some of the best grapes, best wine in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
That's where the blushes came from, out of the Finger Lakes. And
it's because it's a little cooler.
Mm-hmm.
It increases the sweetness.
I'll never forget years ago going to, a wine festival and tasting all the wine. And it's funny because I think back on my childhood and the taste of the wild grapes, like the Concord grapes. And it never failed. My favorite wine was always the ones that tasted like grape jelly.
Yeah.
That old-fashioned Welch's flavor.
Yeah.
There are a lot of grapes grown in upstate New York. And when I was when we were in prep school, we ran off and were drinking one night. And between Penyan, there's this little town called Odessa, and there were some grape farmers around there. And we were swiping grapes. We were just going into the, the farmer, heard us, found us, and he started shooting at us. We were freaked out, but it was rock salt.
Oh yeah, I had some of those too around here.
If you've ever been hit by rock salt, I spent the night in the Penyan Tavern, watching it bleed out of my calf. It is horribly painful.
Yeah, you wouldn't see a farmer try that today, but back then they would do that.
That was the 70s.
Same for me. Yeah, I remember I had this mean old farmer with rock salt, and now he's gone, and his farm is too. But I still go on that land and visit my pear tree that's been growing for 50 years there.
Oh, that's great. Does it still get pears?
It does, but it's not maintained, so they're not as good as they once were. But it's more than just for the pears. It's a spiritual thing. I've known that tree since I was a child. So, yes, I have trees that are my friends that I regularly visit and talk to. So,
in Dublin, in Ireland, they have I forget the name of the outfit, but there's I've posted it on Instagram. On my Instagram account, there's a fellow who has developed a technology much like, how we tap into the music of different plants and leaves and vines and trees. Well, he has figured out how to use AI to interpret the sounds and the rhythms and the temperature and the roots and the mycelium network beneath the trees. And he's set it up on one tree outside of St. Stephen's. And you can talk to this tree, and this tree answers you and talks back. Amazing. effing amazing. It's like muggles are figuring it out. You know, it's amazing. And to see how people stop and take the moment and realize the nature is intelligent, and to come discover that nature is so intelligent. It's amazing to see, because he films these little films of people interacting and posts them, and it's wild. I think it's absolutely stunning and wonderful. There ought to be in every city and dale, there should be a setup like this for people to experience.
Well, hopefully it's to a place where, people could afford to, have a portable one and, chat with any tree they happen to walk past. That would be amazing.
Within 10 years, I bet you they do. Won't that be something to see your children and the kids today going into nature? Specifically, I'd love to talk to that flower.
Right. It would change everything, that's for sure.
It sure
I hope.
Dad, you talked about going and visiting a tree. Anytime I go through my hometown where I grew up at, there's I think it's called the Barnheisel House, but it's an old house that was involved in the Underground Railroad, and they have a museum there. And when I was in elementary school, I planted a buckeye tree in front of the museum, and it's still there. And anytime I drive by, I'm like, "Hey, there's my tree. Hi, tree." And sometimes make a point of parking and getting out and going over and putting my hand on the tree, because that connection for sure. And I actually said, if I don't do anything else in life, having trees that survive me, that I've helped to grow and plant, is an amazing thing to leave.
Yeah, I've got one that my grandfather and I planted right before he passed away back in 1980, and it's still there. Thank God the former owners of my childhood home kept it, and now it's 100 feet tall, 6 feet around, and
lots of rings.
It remembers me. I still visit it regularly. One of these days they're going to catch me creeping around their backyard in the middle of the night, but I've been doing it for 25, 30 years. I never have, so
that's funny.
My great grandfather and his partner and the men that worked with them planted the lilacs of Highland Park in Rochester, New York, which is pretty famous.
Oh, yeah.
And I have attended the Lilac Festival quite a few times, but I was living in Boston, and I drove over to Rochester one weekend. I hadn't been in a long time, and I had forgotten about the Lilac Festival. But as I was driving into Rochester, I always, of course, go to Holy Sepulchre to say hello to the family. And I smelled the lilacs. I smelled them. Wow. And I went to the park, and I sat down on the ground, and I can remember thinking, my gosh, just the value of the generations. There are Abe Lincoln lilacs in that park. That's when it got planted.
Absolutely amazing. I love those lilacs. They've got every type there. What a beautiful park in the spring. Oh, nothing beats it.
Yeah, those lilacs are beautiful. There's a house a couple blocks from us that has the lilac hedge all the way around their property, and they've managed to keep them all alive. There's none that are dying out.
White?
And it's
are they the white ones?
No, the old-fashioned purple.
Okay, the cones. Yeah. There's lots of varieties, but there's just those staple ones that you see of the white and the purple around. On my property, I had white lining the back of my home, and I had no idea when I first was living in New York, because I went back and forth all my life between there and Florida and New York, but I was stunned by the scent and the cloying scent of these lilacs when they were blooming in spring. The first year I owned my home up there, and I was like, gee. And I was on the phone with my mother, who was in Florida, and she said that was the only thing that would make her homesick for Rochester was the lilacs.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Gwen, with all your work with plant spirits and aromatherapy, have you ever been able to distill that fragrance?
Here's an interesting story. You can't really pull any kind of an essential oil out of lilac or an absolute. It will not solve and extract with an anhydrous alcohol. But you can make it into sugar, which I'm sure Davron has done. You can make a lilac sugar. You can cook with lilac.
Yeah.
What I did, I was going home as I usually did, spring break. I was packing the car in Watkins to drive down to Florida. And my mom, I remembered her love for the lilacs, and I had some on the front of my house, those old beautiful purple cone, just wow, are they just magnificent with fragrance. And so at the time in my house, I had this little Philco refrigerator. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. And all it had was like a meat locker for a freezer, which was about this wide. And I took some large Ziploc bags because the meat lockers were empty. I was leaving for, about a month or 6 weeks. So, and I put water in it, and I cut fresh some of those cones of purple lilac. And I put them in there, and I stuck them in the meat locker, and they froze. And I did it with 2 bags and about 6 of those cones. And in the morning, they were frozen in water, and I took them and put them in my igloo cooler behind my car seats and drove them down to Florida. Got home about 3 a.m. because I stopped and saw my friends at the bar rail. And my mom didn't know I was home, but I quietly put stuff from my igloo cooler into the refrigerator. I went to bed, and I smelled coffee in the morning. I came out, and my mother was sitting at the breakfast room table. I'll never forget. And she was in tears. And she had these bags opened of the lilac. I brought it home to her. It was a big thing. It was a moment, But it made lilac water that lasted for a couple of days.
Wow.
So you can take those blooms and you can put them in water. Maybe they need to go through a freeze to release into the water more strongly, because my goodness, it was the lilac water. That's the thing I know you can do with the lilac. You can put them into a carrier oil like sweet almond or jojoba, and you can try and get a little bit of a scent off of that, but not much, and they go bad in the oil. They turn. You were going to say something, Dad.
No, I was going to say, we'll see if your plan works, because you mentioned this to me about the freezing the lilacs. So this spring I did that, and in my freezer I have a few now that I figured I'd save for winter and bring them out.
What a rescue. I mean, what a rescue. Especially for you guys, because you live in lilac territory and
Right.
You have them. I have smelled several different fragrances that have been made of lilac. Never comes close.
I've smelled a few that are okay, but
Yeah, but they're not, and they pow too quickly too, which is not good when you're making a fragrance chemistry.
Right.
But you
and
can.
to me, the smell of lilacs will always be intermingled with that of lilies of the valley. They come out at the same time, and I had lilies of the valley on the ground and the lilac bushes above, and the two smells
Jeepers.
together. Oh, wow, magnificent.
Jeepers. Yeah, there was a place up, my old school was at the top of the village of Watkins Glen. It was an old priest factory. Or, priests. Yeah, priest factory. And the Catholic Church gave it over to our headmaster, who was a defrocked priest, a defrocked Jesuit. And up there was you could go in back of the largest building, and there was a wrought iron walkway bridge across the top of the Watkins Glen Falls up there. And right around each side of that walkway, that iron walkway, lily of the valley. And
Yeah.
I had never smelled it before I went to prep school there. And it was intoxicating. We used to drop acid around there.
We have some here that is probably original to the house. It's actually right outside where I'm sitting.
Oh,
But
wow.
other bushes have grown around it, so you have to maneuver your way in and kind of have a seat with the lily of the valley in order to enjoy it, because it's hiding now, but it is nice to seek out.
They're easy to transplant, too.
Are they? I've been afraid to try to move them because I don't want to lose.
I've moved my lilies of the valley with me to every house I've lived in. So there's a patch of lilies of the valley everywhere I've gone now.
Oh, wow.
I wish lilacs transported so easily, but I'll tell you, I look for lilacs when I look for a new place to live. I always want to have lilacs nearby. I've got 3 or 4 of them here, but nothing will beat my childhood home where there were whole hedgerows of them. But unfortunately, when I go back to visit my tree, I've looked and they've all died out. Nobody maintained them.
Well, a lilac will go dormant for years and then come back to life. It's one of those plants that does that. Now, I did some research on lilac when I was writing the intro to the book I'm on. And because lilac has been integral in my path. And yes, they will, not always, but oftentimes they'll just go dormant. They can hold on for many seasons and then come back. Where is it? The French have found that to be true. Going back and renovating old homes, especially stone homes, and the lilac plants are, around them, and they haven't taken care of the topiary or any of the horticulture for the place. But, as with any kind of restoration, you're going to have a lot of moisture and then the land gets fertile again. And they found that happened, that the lilacs come back.
That's interesting.
Maybe there's hope for my childhood lilacs.
I don't know. Are they still there? Are the root systems still there?
It's hard to say when you're sneaking around someone else's property in the middle of the night, but I'll have to look more carefully. I haven't owned the house in years, but I still trespass there often.
Pirate.
Yeah.
Gwen, you do TikToks on the daily, which I enjoy. But is there anything that is heavy, hopeful, or magical for you this week?
That's a good question. Because it's the end of July, and it seems like time has sped up on us. And I keep sending a magical thought of a wall that's stopping a lot of this push so fast to change this country. It's mostly illusion anyways, but it's still having its effect. And when you look at what's happening in our streets, you asked, I'll tell you, I'm all about saying, no, you can't. Anybody who can stand up to this, and neighborhoods that can gather together. This is a time for neighbors to gather together and say, no, you can't. when they start taking your neighbors from you, when they start taking anybody who says, bullshit, because that's what's coming down. That's what's happening. And as pagans, if any of us think that we're safe right now, that it's all going to be fine and dandy, think again, because the primary issue in all of this is the Christian nationalism, which has nothing to do with Christianity, but has everything to do with weaponizing Christian themes. And it's already begun in certain parts of this country where they're coming after different, pagan organizations and stuff, and churches. Usually they'll eyeball something very isolated because it's easier to attack something isolated. And I keep thinking of the solitary people, the solitary practitioners, or young people who have exposed themselves to, on social media and said, how much they're enjoying their new path in witchcraft and whatnot, and how they're now afraid of what's going on. They really, really need guidance in the form of people, especially us elders, standing up and saying, bullshit, we're not putting up with this, and showing them that somebody cares and that somebody is not going to put up with this, because it's just awful. You guys know this. I don't know how much you're seeing of it in upstate New York, although I've heard bad stories. I don't know about Ohio, but I'll tell you what, if I was in Cincinnati in the last few days, I would be standing on that bridge if I could to say, no, you can't do this. I don't know if you've seen what's happened with the Cincinnati police and how nasty. That's the other thing. Our police force down here has always been nice and very, very good people as far as we can tell. And yet the thuggery in police practice has always been there. Criminals and cops have a lot in common. That's just psychologically true. And the thuggery in the cops these days and what they're doing and the permission that they feel they have to act out and to harm people and to what they did in LA. So yeah, every week pretty much I do say something that says, stand up, stand straight, forget about this. You can't let it go. You can't just, I know not everybody's able to. Not everybody is able to stand up and say that this is who I am and you can't do this to me. I suppose I'm a bit of a Pollyanna for thinking that most people that I know and respect and love will stand up and say, fuck you to what's happening out there. It's bad. And that's the thing about this last week of July. It's feeling with the planetary lineups. And there is a coming eclipse that it's going to get with Mars, let me say, with Mars, not with the sun. It's just...
Hi, Christian.
It's just that if we stand up together, it's more powerful too. And our presence is powerful in groups online and in formats like this. And it enables people from their homes to connect with us privately without fear and say what they're thinking. Because if you, I don't know, it's like if you swallow it down long enough, you're going to get an ulcer, and that turns you away from something. And we're facing all of this stuff without basically having no idea how to strategize, a group kind of thing that says a standard that says, really, I see things every day. I'm sure both of you do, and Christian does, that makes people want to just
and like you mentioned, coming together in small circles like this, and then also providing that platform for those solitaries who may not have that in their local communities, and the opportunity for fellowship and speaking their mind and talking about their grief and talking about the things that are going on in their life and in their community that they might feel helpless to push back against. I know myself, you mentioned people from our community being taken and disappeared. What upsets me is they talked about removing criminals, but they're removing the Nona, the abuelita from the restaurant, who is trying to support our family. And these are hardworking people in our communities that are being taken. And myself, that's not the direction that
well,
it's going to go in. But.
And they're hiring criminals. They're hiring thugs. These people are not trained FBI. We all know this. These are thugs. They're white nationalists, white supremacists, and then they go down the road, whatever other category of thuggery there is. These are not nice people. They have never been nice people. We know this. And talking about, I've always been solitary because I just chose to. I mean, I came up in the 90s, honey. But I've joined so many wonderful circles and been affiliated with some really wonderful people like New Aeon and you. Yeah, well, I agree with Christian on that. It's going to show up, and hopefully it's not going to harm people who've worked so hard to, I can understand where groups like Selena out at Circle Sanctuary and others have worked so hard for so long, and they need to protect themselves from, being taken down by this. I don't know how, though. I really don't, as it rolls along.
Deb, what are your thoughts with with everything going on in the world?
I think it's a tough time right now, but I think I hope temporary. It's a question of, can we survive this period that we're going through right now? Because obviously I don't think that any amount of protesting or things that we do are going to make them suddenly wake up and say, oh no, this was a bad thing to do. So, we can resist, we can do what we can to help people, provide sanctuary and support. But I think it's a question of stalling and delaying this as long as we can. And hopefully things will change, if not within, 2 years, then certainly within 4. And we can begin to get back some sense of normalcy and remember this as a bleak period within our history. But, who knows what damage can be done in the meantime. So we have to, stand together and work to defend those within our communities as much as we can in any way that we can.
Yeah, it looks like Amy actually was able to jump on here.
Oh, good.
Hey!
Amy!
Hey!
Oh my God! The hospital.
Oh no, what happened?
I got stitches on Tuesday to remove a piece of shrapnel from my back. When I got out of the shower this morning, I bent over to pick up the towel and popped a stitch.
Oh.
Holy crap. What are you doing with shrapnel in your back?
An explosion. Super fun. about 20 years ago. I had a piece of glass pop out of my other knee maybe 10 years ago, but bodies hold on to things.
Yeah, I would imagine. So did it form like a cyst around it, or?
No, it was just angry. They kept saying, "Oh no, it'll work its way out. It'll work its way out." For 15 years, it'll work its way out. I'm like, no, let's take this out. It's lived here long enough.
I think Amy is part why her protection magic is so definitive right now. It's because we could call her a merc, I think, in many ways. A merc on the good side of town, you know?
Absolutely.
Proficient in self-defense and in, Amy, roll it out.
Oh my goodness. Martial arts, firearms, a little bit of everything. I spent 15 years as an executive protection agent. So CEOs were like, "Oh, hey, I was a jerk, so maybe someone should go with me and make sure my car is safe."
Gosh. Well, I'm glad you're okay. That's awful.
Yeah, I'm glad you're safe. You're feeling better.
I'm glad I'm safe, but I spent the whole time they're stitching it up going, I'm gonna be late. Like, they will understand.
And we do. You have a new book coming out, right?
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited.
Tell us about it.
Okay. Blackthorn's Botanical Shadow Work. Look at all nice and shiny. This shadow work book is going to be a really helping hand for a lot of people who are the news is terrifying outside, and people are saying, okay, what can I reach for? How can I take those pieces of myself that are really fraying at the edges and sort of push them back together and be able to go through what we're dealing with as a whole person, bringing others with us. So instead of, oh my God, shadow work is terrifying, we're going to give you an ally to go with you to do the shadow work with. Every chapter has a different focus, and so it'll bring in a different ally or two to take you along that trip. That way you have someone to hold your hand. You have someone to make sure that you understand, like, you're not alone in this. You can ask Corpse Flower, what time has it come to no longer be in your life? You can ask some neurotoxins, what's behind your freeze response? So you can move forward as a whole person rather than the shreds of ourselves that we're used to just dealing with. We're taking those past traumas and actually reworking them to be a part of the whole. We're not going to separate you off into the side somewhere. No, we're all on the same team. So let's do this together.
That's quite a weave.
My goodness, yes. I expected it would take maybe 8 months to write. It took almost 2 years because you have to do the shadow work to write the shadow work.
Well, that was really very prognostic of you.
Oh my goodness, yes. I've been fighting for this book since 2020.
Okay, well, your guides are definitely tuned in there.
I definitely was like, okay, I definitely need to write this, and it was difficult because at the time they didn't see, the big rallying cry for shadow work materials. Like, no, I promise, we need this right now. Do the thing. No, we didn't. I'm thrilled that it's going to be out August of 2026.
Oh, excellent.
That's a ways away.
Yes, I've just gotten the final manuscript to the copy editor.
But still, it's something we need right now more than ever. We've been speaking primarily here, going on about the conditions socially and what's happening.
I'll tell you what. The minute someone came into office, my email blew up. How can I keep myself safe? What do I need to carry with me to make sure that I make it home safe? What are the techniques that I need to know that I don't even know that I don't know them? It was really important. I'm thrilled because it was originally going to be just a protection magic book, not just, but I didn't have the whole picture until Judica actually went to the pub board. So you turn in your proposal.
Yeah.
The editor says, hey, I think you could tweak this or that. And instead, we're actually going to be looking together. And Judica said, hey, why don't we include self-defense? This is Amy's whole life, her whole job. She's been working in security forever.
Makes sense.
Bring that part of it in. And so I was thrilled that Judith was like, yes, this is the real thing. We need to do this whole piece. So chapter 6 is a 13,000 word escape and evasion course.
Woof.
Yeah, that class takes 16 hours minimum to teach. So being able to write it down, put it into words, and so I can help more people than just one-on-one, I love it. Like I can do a lot one-on-one, but I can't get to everyone.
Is Judica editing for you?
Judica has always been my editor. She's amazing. As a matter of fact, I was one of the first people she sought out when she got hired at Wiser. My friend Natalie Zaman, who wrote Magical Destinations of the Northeast, we went to see Judica in the Bronx in Lady Rhea's shop. It was classes on the Witches of Yule. And during the intermission, she said, "Hey, why are you writing for us?" I'm like, "Who is us? It's just me here." No. I'm editing for Wiser now. So she's now a procurement editor. So she's able to pull projects in and say, "Okay, this is something that's really going to do something." So when you hand in that proposal to whoever your editor is, they have to do a book report on the information you've provided them. Judica said, "Hey, let's throw in self-defense in there too, because it's so important. It can be incredibly dangerous to be witches. And it's definitely time that people understood that you have to work in the physical as well as the magical. You can't just write a petition on your job search. You actually have to go out and do interviews and meet people and talk to people. The magical is nothing if not practical."
She's one of the best editors I know there is.
Absolutely.
She's a good friend too.
Yes.
Really good friend.
We are so lucky to be able to be on this earth while Judica's here.
She does a lot of really good work, and she has that ability to be so calm. I mean, just so calm.
It's so funny. I'm out here working for the computer gods, and something happens. She'll talk me off the ledge at 3 a.m, and it's fine. My very first, when Botanical Magic came out, the first edit that we did, the big story edit, this editor didn't know me. She didn't know the material. You're supposed to read the book all the way through before you start making changes. She didn't do any of this. And so Judica called and said, "So I'm sorry this might have happened, but let me know if we need to." And it was great. I was able to do it, but then I lost all my changes in the edit. And it's like, this is my nightmare. And she's like, no, everything's fine. If something doesn't make it back in, it wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Everything is fine. She's just the most magical person.
The magical protection and shadow work coming in as it has, in such a way that it's magically being presented at a time when we really, really need it. I wonder, how was it gathering everything that you had to relate, make a relative, blend of, to present it magically? Because I know you're proficient in everything that you work with as and I have a question for you too that I wanted to ask, and I don't know if it's foil or not, but how tall are you?
6 feet.
I thought so.
I was head and shoulders taller than the tallest boy in the first grade.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. By the time I left middle school, I was 6 feet tall.
Xena.
Yes. My father's 6'8", so I had no shot.
Oh my gosh, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. My mom's side, the men were tall. My uncle was like 6'4", 6'5". Even when he was older, he was at least 6. And the boys were. But the height and the ability to do what you do, it really makes you a warrior.
Nobody ever became a warrior because they had an easy life.
Right.
Amy, I have to say, I'm excited for your new book. We were just talking about close friends of mine, as well as us here. We were talking about the past few years and the PTSD and the grief and everything that really everybody is going through, and we don't hold space for it to get past it before something else happens.
Exactly.
So I really see this book as a tool to help folks, peel away those layers of the onion of everything that's may have happened, in the past few years or, earlier on, and help them move through that and get to a place of wholeness again.
I really didn't expect those two to line up the way they have. I mean, no one really understood what this was going to be like a year ago. I mean, we all had ideas, but they weren't this, at least this severe. So having a book that will get you home safely. I mean, you're escaping duct tape, zip ties, handcuffs, being illegally restrained in, chains. The number of ways that you can get out and get yourself help are innumerable. And then you have the shadow work to deal with the trauma afterward when you're safe and you're secure in your home and your body. I had no idea these things were going to be so inextricably linked. I have calls from witches who 5 years ago would have said, like, why do you need to carry a gun? And now they're going, how can I get that? How can I take care of myself? How can I be safe while still protecting myself? After the Pulse nightclub shooting, an organization popped up called Operation Blazing Sword.
Yes.
Where instructors like myself have got together to be a pin on a map saying, hey, if you're near me, I can teach you. I'll teach you for free. I'll teach you, reduced cost, whatever it is. I want to make sure you have what you need to feel safe. Not just armed, but safe. Not everyone is safe with a firearm, and that's okay. There are plenty of other ways that we can make sure that you are as safe as you can be responsibly. The responsible is just as important as the safe.
Yes, definitely. And, I grew up with guns. I was on the rifle team, and, it's just part of the lifestyle. And now that I am, I identify as a gay witch, people don't see, that as part of our life,
Yeah.
And I think it's important to realize that it can be responsibly, for self-defense.
It needs to
for the
be
enjoyment of the sport.
circumstances right now. I mean, I gave away my handgun, but I, in high school or prep school and onwards, I used to shoot skeet and whatnot. I've handled guns. I got my hunting license in New York when I lived there, but that was only once that I did that, and I realized I can hunt, but I won't do that unless it was necessary. I've had all of those trips, the fundamental life force that you're dealing with and who you are at heart. But now we are challenged with a situation where I asked my roommate, who I knew had lots of guns at some point. I asked him, and he's like family. He's been with us for years, my sister and I. And I said, do you have a gun? Because I got a lot of blades around me, and I'm very good with them. I was a fencer, and I was good at it. And I know how to throw a blade. I know how to wield a blade. I've got one right next to me, but I don't want to show up at a gunfight with a knife.
Exactly.
And I know that, I haven't seen anybody snatched off of my streets yet, but I'm in South Florida. And it's brewing up here. And, well, it's the first time I've ever thought, and my sister agrees with me, that we need to protect ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because you just don't know what's going to happen. Dad?
Yeah, to me, a gun is like a fire extinguisher. I mean, you hope you never have to use it, but it's important, particularly depending on your community where you're located, that you have one, that you can be able to protect yourself, your family, and your loved ones. Just because you have a gun doesn't mean you're going to use it, doesn't mean you have to go hunt and shoot things. You may never fire it. I hope you never do, but it is not a bad thing to have as a last resort method of protecting yourself.
I've had enough service people in my life to know that if I do have a gun, I better be shooting it and being proficient at it, so that if I do need to use it, I know what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Right. Those are perishable skills.
They are. They are. Just like wielding a blade,
Which in a way is good. We had a shooting here in Albany on the 4th of July. 10 people were shot, none of them with life-threatening injuries, though, because they were kids. They were 14, 15-year-olds, and fortunately, they weren't proficient. And while there was a lot of collateral damage and people hit and things hit that weren't intended to be, their lack of proficiency turns out to have been a good thing. But you can't do that if you're really trying to defend yourself and you're on the other end of that. You need to know how to use your tools like any other tool, and to prevent accidental or unnecessary injury with it.
Yeah, it's really important when I'm teaching students that one of the first things they have to understand is that in a defensive gun use, every single bullet has a lawyer attached to it.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to say, from my own personal experience, it's important that you learn gun safety and that you also brush up on it. I had kind of walked away from that part of my life because I was raised with guns, hunting, and moved out from home and still had a handgun, but left most of my guns at my dad's house. But when I was robbed at gunpoint, I did not have my gun with me. But the way that I acted in chasing down the perpetrator after the fact to get their license plate and following them, I'm afraid that if I did have my gun, I probably would have shot the guy. But really understanding how you're going to react in the moment and going through those scenarios in your brain before they happen, so that you make right decisions in that moment. Because like you said, every bullet is attached to a lawsuit if you're not careful.
When people come to me and say, what is the first thing that I can do? What is the best thing I can do for myself in this scenario, in this situation? I said, make sure that you're going out. Christian comes out August of 2026. The pre-orders go up in 2 weeks. Each of those scenarios, when you're out in the world, when you're walking through the grocery store, you're in a parking lot, visualize what you would do if A, if B, if C. Give yourself A through Q worth of plans. So that way, by building this little Rolodex in your head, you're not going to stop and say, is it okay if I do this in an emergency situation? You cannot do that. It is not physically possible. Your body is going to react, and it's going to not rise to the occasion. It's going to fall to the lowest level of your training. So if your training is swinging your keys and hit them in the face and run away, like, that's what you're going to do. That's why it's incredibly important. But every place you go, you can't be at the range 24 hours a day. You still have to live your life, but you can make sure that you make a plan for every single eventuality you can. Even if you never use it, you're practicing those thinking things. When your body starts to react, it'll know what to do. You just have to practice muscle memory. It takes 10,000 repetitions. Go through your emotions and try and figure out what you would do in those occasions, because your autonomic nervous system is saying, hey, I'm in charge now, or I'm going to run the boat here. You just try and don't die.
I got a handgun because I would close in the 90s. I would close the shop at night and take the cash back to the deposit at the, outside teller. Mm-hmm. And I got robbed.
Oh, God.
And it scared the shit out of me. I spent the rest of the night in a bar. But the point is that the next day I went down and looked at handguns. And I bought a little, snub nose revolver, because that's what the guy suggested. And I'll tell you, the pressure
God, yeah,
on a revolver is incredible compared to an automatic, and they put the kick on the automatic.
Well, we don't have automatic pistols legal in Delaware. Semi-automatic handguns, absolutely, but Delaware is not a Class 3 state. What we have is, I worked at the gun counter at a gun shop for a couple of years, and we'd have guys come in and say, oh, just hand her a snubby. These gentlemen are reiterating what they've heard other men say. They aren't actually talking to women who shoot and have these skills. Hand her a snubby is the worst advice I see every day.
Right.
Because this is, there's a lot more hand strength that's required. There's the potential for burns and caustic materials coming out of your eyes, particularly why it's important to wear eye protection. It's so, I wish that more gentlemen who intend to teach ladies would actually talk to some femme presenting people before they just throw this stuff out that they've never had to use. They've never had to worry about, are my breasts in the way of my draw? If I'm off body carrying, how do I get to my purse? They just don't have the same requirements for safety that femme presenting people do.
Well, that's why some of the periodicals that are, and I'm not talking about the damn gun magazines, but there are a few periodicals that are published that tell women what they should be looking for and who they should go to for instruction.
Absolutely.
I personally would want an automatic weapon so that it would be easier, I think, especially my hands are getting arthritic.
Yeah, for pistols, I really recommend the M&P has a shield, and it's called Easy, the 2 letters. It has a lighter draw. It has a lighter recoil. It's made for people who have hand strength issues, women, people, elderly, people who are disabled. And so it's a lot easier to fire and to carry.
That's good information. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I picture these men thinking that, get the woman the snubby because she's not going to practice shooting. She's just going to point and shoot. It's not the case. Women should be practicing shooting. And like you said, using the correct weapon too, not point and shoot.
Yes.
I got very good with my little Smith and Wesson.
The rationale is they don't have to chamber the round. It's just, you just fire until it stops shooting. But the kick and the accuracy of a revolver is not a good thing when you're not strong. It does require a lot greater strength. I think you do better with a smaller caliber, semi-automatic pistol. 9mm or even smaller, 32 or something.
The incredible thing about what's happening and the discussion we've come into right now, of course, we're talking about shadow work and protection with Amy, but Amy's always extraordinarily good at, what she does as far as teaching people how to protect themselves and how to work with weapons. The weaponry and all of this, when you bring it into the spiritual community, there's always going to be those people who, and I have myself gone, I quit carrying the pistol because I felt that there was an energy I was carrying because I had it. This is not the same energy as I am thinking of right now. Right now, when I think about having a gun, a weapon, it's because I am seriously concerned for the protection of my home and myself and my family from what's happening around me in the community I live in, which also is another spiritual adventure. And that adventure is something that you have addressed too with the shadow work, which is absolutely wonderful. Can you focus a little on that for us and give us a little preview?
Yes. In doing this, I was worried that a lot of people would say, okay, shadow work is scary. I'm going to get the book and I'm totally going to do this. And it never opens. It's never cracked the cover. But instead of doing this really hard, scary stuff, we're working with different allies to try and make that a little bit easier. So every chapter has the overarching guardian of that section, a park ranger for the earth section, going with you to meet individual allies so you know that you have some safe people, safe spirits, and it's in a place where you can control what's happening. The amount of trauma that exists or springs forth from a loss of autonomy with your own body is very, very significant. So in creating an inner landscape that you have control of, you are the god of this arena, it makes it safer for you to go in and take a peek over the fence at some of those traumas. The further into the book we get, the closer you get to the individual pieces. And by the end of it, you've collected tools to make sure your magical journeys are always safe in the future. You've collected a whole slew of new allies that you can go to, ask questions, and figure out building those relationships. And there's quite a few poisonous plants that are introduced as significant allies, rather than having people say, I am going to go out and take a massive amount of datura and see what happens. No, pumpkin. We always approach poisons with respect, and by approaching them in the spirit world rather than in a physical space, you can understand what they're about before leaning in any further for an idea or inspection.
Have you worked with any flower essence, vibrational, homeopathic?
1,000%. As a matter of fact, Sacred Plant Magic is the whole book. The how to make crystal essences with your florals, how to make flower essences with different plants, how to learn to speak to those plants to see if that's a responsible choice that you've made. So I took a little field trip to go and make some flower essences so I could talk through the procedure that I use. So I drive out in the middle of nowhere and I'm looking for a plant to talk to me, and this field of sunflowers just appears in front of me. Like, okay, this is a good place. I pull over and I get out and I've got my little materials with me. And I said, hey, I walk up to the first, they're probably head height. They're probably 6 feet tall. And I say, hey, I really love to work with you, see if we can establish a relationship. Can we do that? And the first plant is like, oh, hell no. And you go to another plant. Hey, sunflower, I'd like to get this feeling and I'd like to meet and work with you. Can we do that? Nope. I'm like, is it me? Like, did I not shower well? And what's happening? And it turned out I got to the third plant, and the third plant's like, absolutely not. And this is why they were being used for environmental remediation. And so that whole area was toxic. So using that particular stand of sunflowers to work with energetically was a big no. So even if you get 3 no's, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just might be something that happened to that particular stand of sunflowers. So all of those communication aspects come through in Sacred Plant Magic.
They do.
That's a very telling story too. So many, I was taught traditional Western herbalism with Dr. Christopher, the Mormon herbalist, many years ago. And even though they were spiritual people, they had divorced the spiritual aspect of herbalism from the practice. And how many herbalists might have tromped off into that field and started harvesting sunflower petals or seeds or whatever they were, and without thought to having a communication.
I have the machete. I make the rules.
Exactly.
You really do have to talk. I was working in Boston, in the West End, over by the harbor, at Aubon Pan, and I'd walk in from the bus drop. I walked over this one little plant in the summer, this one coming up through the cement, this one little flower, every day. And I had been working along the beach and even using seaweed and stuff and making essences and talking to all of those plant allies. But that one little plant ally, I'd walk over it, and all of a sudden, the back of my neck, I'd feel it. And I'd hear in my head, you just don't like me. It was like a real sort of a dysfunctional little guy. Yeah. Oh, so on Saturday, I came back with a jar and water, and I spoke with this little plant. That, of course, the ABA of it all would say, you're doing it wrong. You can't do it in this environment. And I'm like, the thing was, I harvested this little fella right out from the cement, and that essence is something that I use in turtle medicine that I make, because what it does is it helps to rescue people who are going through an urban crisis of too much city, and those people too who are going through a crisis of being afraid of nature.
Oh.
I mean, and I was just, so Amy, yes, the conversation you have with the plant ally is prime. It's the top note of everything that you do with making essences.
Absolutely.
So Amy, you call yourself an arcane horticulturalist. How did you get started in this? When did you, at what point in your life did you realize how magical plants were and start connecting with their spirits beyond just normal plant interaction?
I was in the 3rd grade. I can tell you the down to the day, growing up in Baltimore City, there was, we had 1 tree per block. It was a very, very urban part of Northwest Baltimore. And the only other plants that I see and could identify there was a stand of bamboo lining the alley. Okay, this is a thing. One day, my parents are coming out of the basement, one of those outdoor entrances to the basement, and there's a little patch of peppermint growing right there. And I look at it, I ask my mom, what is it? And she says, oh, the mint that you like in your ice cream, that's what that is. I'm like, you told me not to eat things out of the ground, so I think one of us is wrong. By the time we moved to the county in the summer between 2nd and 3rd grade, we had never had a yard. I mean, there was just a little postage stamp with some crabgrass on it, but that's not a yard. So when we move into this big house, it's out of the way. It's much quieter than it was in the city. And I find these beautiful fuchsia flowers planted outside of the house. And I am entranced. I've got to sit down in front of this plant and figure out what's up. I'm like, I was talking to plants at that point. I just thought I was making it up. And so I brushed the back of my hand against one of the flowers, and the flower fell out of the little cup that was holding it. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble because I broken one of the flowers. Inside the cup was a black seed. The flower was just done what it was doing, and it was ready to fall out. And I was able to see that there was a seed inside that flower. And so for my little 3rd grade brain to say, oh my God, flowers exist to make seeds that make more seeds. It's like the laws of the universe are downloaded in my very small child brain. And I'm going, I have to know every single thing about this forever.
That's great.
Excellent.
That's a long time in.
Welcome, Tamara.
Hi, Tamara.
I was lucky enough I got to go to a horticultural high school. So I spent half of my time at
Wow.
regular high school and half the time doing horticulture.
Wow, that's unusual.
I actually took horticulture at the vocational school too, and I know how to grow poinsettias from a cutting and get them to bloom on time, which is completely useless information at this point in my life.
Yep, don't turn the light on in the middle of the darkness. In December.
You guys,
we usually bought our grafts, and then we're able to start from a very, very small cuttings. Yeah. I did want to talk about pepper spray if you have a moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Please
for the people who are not familiar, not comfortable with the idea of a firearm, a lot of people ask me about pepper spray or mace or any of the spicy friends that we can bring in along on our journey. Everyone calls it mace. Not everyone, but a lot of people call it mace. Mace is no longer available in the civilian market. It's just caused way more problems than it's solved. There is a mace brand pepper spray, but more or less what's available on the civilian market is pepper spray, which is much better because mace didn't work on a lot of different people. It was designed as a military weapon, not a self-defense tool. So pepper spray, someone says, okay, I definitely want to do that. How do I do that? Do you just walk in and grab something off the shelf and then leave? Absolutely not. It sounds like it should be easy, but it's a little bit more complicated because we're taking safety into mind. So when you go, you say, okay, this is something I want. Pull it off the shelf and look and see it has an expiration date on it. If it doesn't, it's a cheaper brand. And if you can find something a little bit more safe, but also affordable, I prefer that. So you find your design, you say, okay, this is the Mace brand pepper gel, and it's got UV dye in it. So if they scrub all the pepper off, I can still run a UV light over you for about a week after and still see, so police can test for the presence of that material. Great. Now buy 2. The first thing you're going to do is when you get home, go away from all the people and the little animals and as far away from humans as you can, and spray that canister until it is empty. You need to know how far it's going to shoot so you know how far away you can be and still reach your attacker. You need to know the shape that it's going to use. Is it a gas? Is it a cone of foam? Is it a stream? I definitely encourage the UV dye with the spray foam because it can get behind your glasses. It's not going to just bounce off and you'll be fine. It actually looks like a pumpkin exploded on your face. You want to know all of those pieces and how long it's going to, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, until it's empty. You need to know every single one of those things before you're going to take that out into the world and use it. If you're going to train with your materials, as I always recommend, you can buy training spray. It's just water in the same dispersant that they use for the actual pepper spray. So you can practice with friends, practice with your parents, practice with your kids. It's just water. We're just having a water gun fight. We need to know how far it's going to go, how long it's going to take to get there, and remember to empty the entire spray. This is not one of those things where you're like, oh, I feel like it's wasteful. It's not, because we can get another pepper spray. We cannot get another hue. You want to make sure that you understand where you can position yourself without getting a back spray of any of that. And I do not recommend pepper spray, pepper gel, any of the pepper family if you have uncontrolled asthma. Just one little speck can really cause an irritating concern for that. So make sure that you're as safe as you can be. Well, if I'm misting it, oh my goodness. When you spray a pepper spray container, canister, whatever you want to call it, spray it until it is empty every single time. Even if you just have a little psst, it's trash now. Okay? It's just like a fire extinguisher. Those particulates clog the nozzle and the dispersant will leak out over time. Replace it. We can replace it. We can't replace you.
That's really good advice. I'm thinking of how many people might be walking around with 10-year-old pepper spray in their purse because they've never, gratefully, not had to use it. But
right. So that dispersal agent lasts for 2 years. So if your material is any older than 2 years, that dispersant's actually not going to work. So make sure when you buy your pepper spray, if it doesn't already have an expiration date on it, write a date 2 years out to replace that pepper spray with. If it gets sprayed by accident, if there's something happens, it needs to get thrown away. But that 2-year marker will actually be really helpful because no one's going to remember exactly to the day how many days ago 2 years was.
Amy, can you explain how pepper spray works?
Absolutely. I love it. Each of these people, I get excited. The chemical agents in those are derived from capsaicin from different families of peppers. Right. So they're looking at the Scoville units and also the availability at which they can actually process this. So you can get the higher up in the Scoville units, get the higher also the price. So they find something particularly spicy and nasty, but not something that's really in demand like Scotch bonnets or any of the beautifully ghost peppers. Ooh, anything deliciously spicy. And they start creating that spray. Just like any other essential oil that we're using, the volatile oils in those peppers aerosolize. So we're encouraging the aerosolization process by pointing it in a specific direction. Companies like Mace, they're adding it to this foaming agent, which makes it a lot easier to see. You can actually see where it's going with a specific distance. It makes it a little difficult to see where you're pointing at. But companies like Mace, and there really are a good bunch of companies, they'll add things like flashlights or red dots or a couple other security measures that say, okay, that makes it a little bit more expensive, but you are absolutely certain of where it's going. Where you put your finger on the trigger and the flashlight comes on, or the red dot comes on.
That's cool.
So we're just adding volatility to that air.
Do they mix the capsaicin with a fat, to make it more soluble, or is it just the water base?
Capsaicin a little better with the fat base, but they actually have some amounts of water in the dispersant to make sure that it's actually going as far as it can, because the molecular weight of the oil versus the water.
It's interesting. It's great that you mentioned too the asthma warning. I know myself, I have asthma, and certain things will set it off, and it's not pretty when you start throwing up in order to breathe. So.
Clear liquids coming out of every pore. Yeah. You just died. Yeah.
I've heard of people trying to make their own pepper sprays.
Absolutely.
That sounds dangerous and difficult to me. What do you think about that?
Oh, I've seen the memes going around. Oh, pepper spray is illegal. One, it's not, at least not in the US. The number of people who are like, oh, we just put this stuff out, just hold out a squirt bottle the size of my arm, and that'll make everything better.
Gun, yeah.
No, they leak. They're dangerous. This is not effective in any way.
They can be absolutely harmful, though.
Absolutely. It's way easier to hurt yourself than to help yourself with that setup.
Yeah.
One of the remedies that that people will give out is using, black pepper essential oil to mix with water to spray on pieces of furniture or whatever to, push your dogs or cats away from. I've never agreed with that.
That's mean.
That's chemical warfare on your pets, first of all.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the pup, and I just lost mine, so I'm kind of,
Oh, honey.
yeah, it's, but I always tell folks, and I've always told them, as far as the essential oils go, if they were looking for any kind of pepper, black pepper, I'd say, exactly what are you going to use this for? And I say, that's not going to work, or deter them from using it by saying, how much do you love your pet? But I have been around when pepper spray has been used.
Yeah.
I was standing behind, and the scent is there. And the effect on the person who got sprayed was immediate and overwhelming. And they deserved it.
I'm glad to hear that. A lot of people say, okay, well, I got pepper sprayed. What do I do for my face? This is not, a number of people will tell you, oh, pour milk in your eyes. Please don't do that. Please never, please don't do that. Milk has dissolved solids and bacteria in it, and that will infect your eye and cause a lot of problems. Just use clean, clear water as much as you possibly can.
When we were doing Occupy, my sister and I held the Occupy down in the West Palm Lake Worth area and did the computers and everything. That's when I've seen pepper spray used. And it was actually turned on the person that was trying to get us. It was weird, but I knew all these years with the oils and everything, I knew immediately, do not use those bottles of milk over there to help anybody out. Use water, get the hose going here. You can't do that because it'll clog everything up.
It's interesting during some different protests. I took street medic training, and they were telling people to use milk of magnesia and it's like, no, you can trap the capsaicin. Like I think we've learned more about those things since then. But, yeah, and I can't imagine actually pouring. I think milk of magnesia might be more irritating than the cayenne.
Oh my goodness, yes. And then every time you wash your face for the next 5 weeks, you're gonna get yeah.
One thing that hasn't been discussed much on, or talked about in videos of what's going on out there right now is the fact that these thugs that are, putting on their fall police uniforms and going out and collecting bounties by ghosting people, they're using pepper spray. Mm-hmm. They're using it on people who approach them. Not everybody, but not every one of them, but the ones who feel they need to back folks off, that's what they're working with, is pepper spray.
One of the things that we need to learn first is to look all around us. When that panic starts to set in, you start getting tunnel vision. So you look from side to side to sort of break that tunnel vision so you're able to be aware of the surroundings around you. They are banking on the fact that you see fatigues and you panic and think police. Okay? Look at their shoes. Actual officers are wearing lace-up boots. They may or may not be bloused correctly. But the guys who are cosplaying as police are wearing ratty sneakers. They're carrying airsoft guns full of pepper balls. They're not carrying actual firearms. They'll carry pepper spray instead of another a taser, something that's only issued to police. Right. Even ICE itself does not trust these yahoos that they're picking up off the side of the street and saying, hey, go pick up illegals. No one is illegal in stolen land, first of all. And second of all, they're cosplaying as police, so you can absolutely figure out who is going to be a problem and who is not. The guy with the little airsoft gun full of pepper balls has no idea what he's doing.
Trouble is that they travel in gangs, and that makes people fearful. And they come up on people who are alone or solo in the moment.
Already vulnerable.
And they're already vulnerable. And this is getting to be where people are basically now staying in. Mm-hmm. A lot of what we enjoy at this time of the year is being completely eradicated with fear. That's the other bad thing about all of this, is the fear.
Oh no, Christian. 9 out of 10 times they're being hired to do this job. They're getting paid actually really well to torment and destroy people's lives. Yes, Rand. Look for steel toes. Look for even steel-toed sneakers are really not the thing. They want tall boots to protect as much open and exposed skin as possible.
But Christian is bringing up a really good point here. There are people that are cosplaying or calling the faux. Now, the ones that are hired just off the street, you can say, are thugs who are bounty hunters. They're hunting bounty, and they're not really correctly bounty hunters. They're people who are thugs who are
Right.
trying to make money.
Even bounty hunters get training. These guys, they just pull them off the street and hand them a pepper spray.
Right. And the government, of course, the government is hiring these people. Have you seen who's sitting? Of course, you've seen who's sitting where. The point is that these are also there are people who are imitating these people who are sex traffickers, who are taking, especially, what are they doing with the girls?
Yes.
What are they doing with the women?
And they won't tell us.
And they won't tell us. And this is the government too. What are they doing with the women? They're not sending them to El Salvador. And they're not in the Everglades.
No. We're at the
Where
point.
are the women? Because they're picking up women. You see more women snatched than men. And I hate that word snatched. I'm really apologizing for using it.
I'm surprised we haven't seen a court case yet on a Second Amendment stand your ground clause where somebody shows up at your door without a warrant and you take them out.
Just a matter of time.
I'm waiting to see when that's actually going to happen. I'd like to see them knock on the door of somebody who's aware and prepared for it. You know, somebody who's listened to like one of Amy's groups or something and knows that they can protect themselves in a certain way and says, no, I'm not. These guys have been fought off and stood off by people out there on the streets before, and more neighborhoods are sticking up for one another. But basically, what we're talking about here is kidnapping, ghosting.
Yeah.
What they are doing, and you can say to them, show me your warrant and show me your badge. And if they can't do that, then they cannot legally take you. And we all know this. This is not stopping any of them. They break car windows and pull people through the window. They did it with a woman out in California in front of her little daughter.
Well, and if we see the suspension of habeas corpus, or, you know, what are we going to see since they've upped their budget to $45 billion? It does become a shoot first, ask questions later situation.
Yeah, and Wisconsin's already enshrined this into law. If you present yourself and say someone, hey, I'm here to take you away, you don't have a warrant, you don't have an actual badge, they can shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
It has citizen being enshrined into law that police do not have special powers. I'm definitely going to pay attention to see how that works out in the courts, because you're not law enforcement. You cannot show your badge. You can't,
Yeah. And is this going to be his brown shirts when it's time for him to leave office? Will he have his own military force with? It's kind of scary.
It is.
Well, and coming back to our community, my dears, is Starwood going on right now?
Yes.
Yes.
And
Wrapping up.
That's really great. That's wonderful that Starwood is actually happening. Still, people, this is our time of year, festivals and all kinds of wonderful get-togethers and gatherings and circles that are there usually. But how many are going to be attending? How many of them are going to go through? And how safe is it for the pagan community? And I'm just using the pagan term to include goddess or child of the goddess, goddess-oriented, heathen. Our dark brethren, everybody who's under our banner.
When we talk about each of those individual communities, we're all very, very vulnerable because we've been othered
Yeah.
for every bit of existence that witches, pagans, goddess worship, etc. have existed. So I live in a blue state. Delaware is very small. Everybody knows everybody else's business. There's not even 1 million residents in the state of Delaware. Tiny, tiny. It's the second smallest state. For a blue state, that's good. I have still been run off the road into oncoming traffic. I've been threatened with murder, beheading, set on fire, burn down my house, and kill my pets. This is no easy matter.
And I think I see it in talking to other people outside of this conversation that I think we're at the beginning of the poem by Pastor Martin. First they came for. I think a lot of white presenting pagans feel like they are still safe. And they're not paying attention to the other folks and what's going on.
Did anybody read Storm Berrywolf's article in the Wild Hunt?
Oh, yeah.
A couple days. I mean, that's hot shit to me. I was really going good with that. Yes, absolutely. Fuck you. I'm with him 100%.
I'm gonna say better late than never. In that situation, because I have heard a lot of silence from those who have a platform. We've been talking about it for a while now, and I have heard silence, but it is good that he's speaking out. So hopefully more folks do.
Well, we want to reach out and be able to help, especially like I was saying at the beginning when it was just us and we were discussing, there are solitaries out there, and people like Christian has the shops that he has and stuff, and he knows the pulse of people. And there are people walking in and out of his stores that are, solitary, but they make friends in the shop. They may be in and out of, but they're mostly on their own. And yet at a time like this, when their neighbors, somebody, even the yo-yo married to the sister, who's hanging the stars in bars or whatever, it can be dangerous for them. And they have to know there's places they can turn in their community where we are there for them to help in whatever way we can. If it's just, support, moral support, and friendship,
Absolutely.
The unification of energy and the standard of blessed be.
I can remember being a very, very young witch and thinking I was the only person on the planet who had any idea what I was talking about. And so it didn't feel safe to even talk to people who were close to you. My best friend, my boyfriend, my whoever. It can be incredibly alienating because you're too afraid to look outside yourself. Add on top of this a political environment that makes every single other group in the country terrified of existing, terrified of being out in the public. It's a recipe for a lot of loneliness, a lot of self-defeat before they've even started their journeys to say, okay, well, I guess I can't do this because, some Gestapo jerk is going to cause a problem.
Well, there was the 80s or 70s witchcraft scares and Satan scares and all of that BS, which the FBI actually denounced, that it was crap.
I think it's important you talk about those, the satanic panic and those elders in our community who stood up.
Yeah.
Like Lori Cabot and those who were on Donahue and speaking out for.
It's true, and in that time they had that opportunity to do that because it was like Lori brought so many of us out of the broom closet. It's quite true, especially when you grow up with Catholic guilt and you're gay, what have you, and you're the other, but your primary is basically being your spiritual resource.
Mhm.
And we have a community of spiritual resource.
We do, and I think it's important that we circle those wagons and lift up those authors like Amy who do speak out and talk about the practical. I call it around the kitchen table skills.
Yes.
The practical everyday living skills, that it's not just blowing cinnamon in the front door, and the TikTok spell of the week. It's real life skills. It's
Yes.
down and dirty, the good stuff.
What Christian's saying there too is very important. Lori has put a lot of the do's and don'ts out, in every shopping bag, and we can take that as a clue as to how to spend our days and with people, and like the little TikToks that I do, or Amy does, or Jim, you do them too. Dad, you don't get on.
I'm still trying to figure out TikTok. I'll get there eventually.
Short time period now going on, so
Yeah.
By the time I figure it out,
it's not
it's
gonna be here.
gone. Yeah, I know. That's when I'll finally get my act together and figure it out. But danger levels are increasing. All this rhetoric, the world is heating up. I've been to pagan festivals where Christians gathered outside in pickup trucks and were firing shotguns and burning crosses. And that was, years ago.
Right.
Now, these same people feel much more greatly empowered by everything that's going on. And it's going to make them emboldened to do more and more aggressive things, perhaps without as many ramifications as they would have faced in the past. So I think in this day and age, it's triply important to be absolutely cognizant of where you are, your environment, what's around you. Have that, as Amy pointed out, go through your plans in advance. Role play it out before you're in a scenario, because this could become something it's a matter of life or death in your daily life now.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think that it's valuable to say that each one of us here, I know that Amy does it, I do it, Jim does it, sitting your dad, but anybody in our community needs to speak out and be vibrant in especially social networks, so that people hear us and see us and understand that they aren't alone, that there's some place they can reach too. Make yourself available. It's taking a risk. Really, it really is taking a risk. But you know what? Fuck them. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not bleeping myself anymore.
It's important that we use our privilege. We are all white presenting folks in the community, and as you mentioned, noticing what's around you, what minorities are around you, what's going on. We could use our privilege to step in between when things, because quite frankly, they're not going to disappear us, not at this stage in the game. So what can we do to be that buffer between those who might be targets? Because fact of the matter is, they are racially profiling. When they went to the Puerto Rican Museum in Chicago, even though Puerto Ricans are citizens of the United States, that told me that they were profiling.
Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know about situational awareness, Cooper's color code, you can also find it in Protection Magic. Colonel Jeff Cooper actually put this down in a really easy way to understand way, where it's a color spectrum. So condition white is have your head down on your cell phone as you're walking out of the mall with arms full of packages, and you have no awareness of what is around you. Problem is, you have no awareness, which means you have no time to react. So somebody grabs your brand new Apple out of your arms as you're walking to the car after just purchasing it. Guess what? You have no time to react. Yellow is where we'd like to be. Yellow means you're engaging with the people around you, not necessarily stopping to talk to every person, but you're making some eye contact. You're keeping your head on a swivel. You're noticing the things that are around you. That's where we want to live. That's great. The next step up from that is condition orange. I'm walking down the streets and I notice someone with their head down and they're walking right towards me. That doesn't mean that you're in danger. What that means is this is something I should pay more attention to. While this person is walking towards you with their aggressive walk and their gait is being a little tight and structured, that's when you say, okay, he's walking this way. I could step to the side and see if he goes past me. I could make myself ready if somebody wants to fight. Like, you can go through that Rolodex we've talked about building. That's when that time is. Because by the time they actually get to you, it's already too late to come up with a plan. Your plan is whatever it is that happens the second you're aware of the threat. Condition red, all the way at the tippy top, is, oh my goodness, they're here and they're going to do something. I have to actually act now. We're no longer planning. We are stepping forward and into the situation as best we can with whatever training we have. If they trip and fall on a fire hydrant, guess what? Good job. How did you pull a fire hydrant out of your back pocket? But you have to be able to engage that threat, because the last and final portion of this is condition black. This is a freeze response. This is the inability to respond to that threat. This usually happens the first time you get punched in the face. Somebody punches you and you're standing there going, well, that just happened. Until your circuits come back online, then you have to figure out how to proceed. But if you go through all these steps, hopefully you can avoid some of that condition black freeze response. Because we know that the best way, action is always faster than reaction. And it takes a sixth of the time space to react than it does to act. You're already moving, you're already doing everything you can to keep yourself safe. But by being prepared, you've already jumped ahead 3 steps ahead of this game.
Excellent. And breaking it down in a way that is easily understood. That's because it's a concept that might not be easy to articulate. So it's great that it's broken down into almost steps, and so folks understand where they need to be in different situations. It's excellent.
We need this information, and we need it regularly out there right now. It's like you need to run the commercial over and over again. When, like making a little video that you can replay, I don't know. But I do know this. We need to reach out and be there for our community right now. I get that so strongly. I have gotten that from that end and from this end. And I truly have a hesitation to anything that we're not doing. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what can we cover here? How can we be of service to one another right now? It's so very important. I've never been pushy in the community at all. I've been a solitary, and I do my job, and I interact with many, but I stay in my wheelhouse, Now it's different. It's just different. We all need to join hands, as they say, and not in kumbaya, and kick ass, take questions later,
Absolutely.
We have to be there for one another, as I said, in a blessed be way.
The blessed be way is perfect, but balance is where that really needs to come from. Christian, balance is necessary. You absolutely have to, because we'll use the color spectrum for the Cooper's color code. White is inability to react, but so is black. They are both inability to react, and they're for different reasons. That's why they're opposite ends of the spectrum. The same that we're doing with can also be the negatives that we're experiencing. Somewhere in the middle is where we need to be, because that's where the balance is.
Christian's making a very good point about the conversion of, once you sit and listen to people and people listen to you, it can make a difference. We're not talking, though, about the thugs who are bounty hunting, because they're just in it for what they can get out of it.
Yes.
Obviously, they're in it like, you know what they remind me of? They remind me of the hunters that raced to the west to kill as many buffalo as they could. The whale hunters that will still come out of the Japanese harbors to kill as many whales as they can. This is what we've got in the streets of America right now. Okay, I'm a metaphor queen, but the point is true.
Christian also mentioned something that the people that come to a shop often are the suburban housewife whose husband might be MAGA, but they're interested in having some magic in their life, and then they take that experience home and present a positive view of the craft to their loved ones. A lot of times in talking with leaders in our community, they were getting hung up on interfaith and not wanting to offend,
basket.
offend the interfaith people that they were working with.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, when you're working with interfaith people who are Methodist and Presbyterian and Lutheran, those are not the people who are going to be offended when you talk about the Christian right, because they are not the Christian right.
No, they aren't.
The work that Christian is doing, where he's running into Baptists and Pentecostals and evangelicals, those are the people that we might be able to still reach through dialogue and understanding. Some of the moderates that might be involved in those groups, and possibly break down some of that system. But the idea of getting hung up on offending our Christian friends with tough language, we have to speak tough. We have to lead by example. I think of Byron, who is organizing and working with those people who are Baptist in her community, and in the town, and setting that example. And that's what we have to do every day, is just set an example of what a witch looks like, out in our garden, out in the community, working at the food bank, and the animal shelter, and
growing tomatoes and bringing them to the neighbors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I know that we started late, but I do want to take a moment to plug an upcoming event that Byron and I are organizing, and it is a Circle of Witness and Renewal, and it is going to be Sunday, July 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I would love everyone to just come and share a poem, or but what we want to do is really hold space for that grief, for that despair. Byron is going to lead a meditation and a magical working to kind of ground and put that energy to use that we're all dealing with, and send it out, and then coming up with actionable steps as we come out of that meeting too. And possibly it could be something that is ongoing, but I'm super excited for it. It kind of came out of the call for action and stagnancy in our community as we talk about issues, but not knowing what to do with it. So
I'll be there.
I'll be there.
Right.
Yes.
And Amy, you are invited, and would love to have you. I always love to have fellow herbalists. I think of when you talk about protection, everyone talks about sending up your wards, and it's like, my wards are planted in my garden.
1,000%.
I talk to them every day. I don't have to, I don't have to do anything special with them other than have a conversation once in a while. So,
I honestly believe that if Poke had given me a warning, I would not be alive today. Working with the plants in my area, the spirits of the land, as well as my specific plant allies. Every new or full moon, depending on what I'm doing, I'll walk the bounds. I'll make sure everybody's doing okay. But I also, what I'm doing is I'm checking with the land to see who has popped up, who's new on the block. Christian plants are just coming to you for their end of life services. It's okay. So I came around the side of the house, and I saw a stand of Poke that just appeared practically overnight. At least I didn't notice it 2 weeks ago when I was out there. And this is pretty standard, like a big stand. So, okay, somebody's got a message for me. So I'm thinking, okay, it's in the backyard, so it's behind me. It's, so what is it that I need protection from? Remember, it's a poisonous plant, so if it can protect itself, it can protect you. So what is behind me that I need protection from that I haven't seen? So I started going through my life. At that point, I was head of security for 2 high rises in Wilmington, Delaware. It was the 2 biggest pieces of commercial real estate in the state. Very prestigious. I'm very excited. What did I miss? And going through that list of where I go and what I do, I found out I had a stalker. This man was a repeat offender. Had done 12 years for unspeakable things. And any of us who work social justice for bodily autonomy understand how hard it is to get someone arrested in the first place, much less 12 years. So, content warning, ouchies. He had a plan to kidnap, rape, and murder me.
Ooh.
He let me know that his plan was to leave my body on a local beach for some mom with a kid to find. And I wouldn't have known any of that if Poke hadn't been like, hey, can you pay attention, please? We are trying to tell you this thing.
Wow.
I wound up with a piece of paper that meant nothing. Restraining orders are just a piece of paper. It's just to say, we understand that there's a problem. It's not actually going to do much. When they appeared, the police were called. Call us back if you get murdered. Like, they did not care at all. So Poke let me know what was up, and I was able to make sure that I had the tools that I needed to make sure that I came home safely.
That's awful. And such a strong story. I think of trying to notice the herbs that are growing, and usually I'm thinking, well, is it a year that I need respiratory? Definitely not something as pressing as your story. That's amazing. And just getting that warning. And I'm sorry that unfortunately law enforcement isn't really there to protect women until after the fact. I always call them corporate enforcement, because it seems like that's what they do, is they enforce ordinances, not prevent crimes, sadly.
Absolutely.
But that's where that self-protection comes in.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons it was so important. Gwendolyn asked earlier, what was the process I made before I could write a single word? I was jammed up. I couldn't write any words, and I had to sit down and write that story out in depth to be able to move past the trauma of needing protection and not wanting to be seen as weak for admitting that I needed help. And so once I was able to write that down, and I knew it needed to be part of the book, then everything else just flew. I mean, I wrote it in a couple months just because the dam was so backed up. Once I got that out of my system, I was able to write through the book very easily.
That's how the best stuff comes through.
Yes.
I imagine in your life too, you have had those times when men have been competitive with you because of your abilities, and they're maybe not measuring up as highly. And that can be difficult too. But that also brings a protective group to you too.
Absolutely.
Well, there's so many societal things that give rise to the incels and the men with the fragile ego that are hurt and then lash out at women who are stronger.
The most surprising group of men are the gentlemen who can see my scars.
Yeah.
That not only does that raise their estimation of my lethality or my how much trouble is this person going to be, but they feel competitive over the fact that I have very visible scars, and they absolutely scream, please don't what is it, choose Jesus, don't choose me. Like, we're gonna have to go if we go, but I'm gonna make it hurt.
Good gosh.
And I'm just thinking, like, what dude, like, F around and find out, like, what dude's messing with you?
Yeah. It's a shame, because the bigger guys who ordinarily wouldn't have a problem with another dude will feel like they have to puff themselves up because there's a woman who they know could be a problem. I mean, when you look at me, it looks like, I'm covered in gunshot wounds and tattoos and scars. That definitely changes their attitude about how much of a threat I can possibly be. Yes, Darcy. Agreed.
speaks of service.
So, Amy, I'm going to put up your website here, and of course, we've talked about your newest book that will be coming out next year. But what is going on your website? Are you still doing your tea blends? What's going on your website?
Yeah, now that I can put the botanical shadow work on the burner while it's being handled by the copy editor, I'm back to doing teas. I'm back to doing more regional book signings. There's a huge signing in DC in about 3 weeks, which I'm very excited about, but I've never ever been to something this large. They're calling 10,000 people a day.
Wow.
Yeah, so they it was an area business. They decided okay, we're going to do a conference on for fictional witches. Okay, that's great, fantastic. My friend said, "Hey, Amy, could you help me run my soap booth at this event in DC, middle of August?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." So Jen is her name. Emailed the owner of that conference and said, "Hey, I know I told you I was selling soap, but my friend wants to come and help me with my booth. Is it okay if she sells her books? Because it's, for readers." "Oh, yeah. Who's your friend?" "Amy Blackthorn." And I swear to you, the phone rang before she sent the email saying, "You know Amy Blackthorn?" So they were very kind and they gave me a free booth and 2 appearances for speaking. So
it's an ABA. It's a.
I don't think it's ABA. The name of the conference is Once Upon a Con, and this is their first year.
Oh, okay. It's definitely in that zone and not. Gotcha.
So yeah, I'm super excited.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes. There's big galas every night. I got a ball gown. It's going to look amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, especially in DC, it's a really cool city.
Yeah, it's at the Gaylord, so it's a huge venue.
I've had a conference at that. You'll love it there. It's so much fun.
I'm super excited. I'm gonna say we got the pre-order link is about any minute is going to go up. So 10,000 people, potentially 30,000 people can pre-order Blackthorn's botanical shadow work in the next 2 weeks. So the great thing about that is it's like a present to yourself because you order it and then you're like, "Oh, I forgot that was a thing," and it's right there on the day it comes out.
That happened to me recently when I got the deck of Judica's protection cards.
Oh, I love it. It goes everywhere with me in my briefcase.
Well, wonderful. Amy, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. After your traumatic experience at the hospital.
Good grief.
But I'm glad that you joined us because we did, and I thank everybody for sticking with us too, because we did talk. We did just chit chat for an hour about lilacs and everything that came to mind before you were able to join us. But it was a nice evening, and thank you, Dav and Gwen, for the opportunity to sit down with you tonight too.
And if you want to check out any of my books, amyblackthorn.com, you'll get the first 30 pages of any of my books. You can download it, read it for free. It's absolutely, I want to know that my voice is the voice you want in your head. I want you to know that you are, the cost of the book is something that's worth it to you because I'm speaking directly to you. That's all I want is for somebody to feel seen and heard and safe.
And I have to say, as a fellow herbalist, I fully support folks searching out your books because I haven't read anything that I would disagree with. So
it's important to me.
There's a lot of herbal authors out there that, I will not.
I'll tell you what I had a lot of fun reading was all about, and it's right here next to me. It's, I can't see, it's not in dark. It's Blackthorn's, it's making drinks.
Oh, botanical, yes. Yes.
I had a ball reading that.
I love that it was super important to me to make sure that every magical use for alcohol had a sober substitution. I want to make sure that sober people are feeling seen as far as creating botanical elixirs that don't involve alcoholic spirits. That way you can still take part in that botanical magic that we've been working together with, but still feel seen enough not to be pressured into do something that's not safe for you.
I have to send you a message because I know a bartender in Carmel, California that uses your book to do the sober side of cocktails.
Fantastic.
and puts the magical spin on it. He works at Pilgrim's Way in the day. I have to put you guys together.
I would love that.
Hi, Joanne. I have to say, every herbalist that's worth their weight in gold is also a good bar master.
You know who says also agrees with you is Amy Stewart. She says, "I would never trust a sober botanist." Like, that's funny. Yes, that's
So
definitely one of the things that I came up to when I was writing the botanical elixirs was, hey,
Well,
let's work together.
the botanical elixirs, you were talking about your voice and being comfortable with it in your head. I had a great deal of fun listening to it. I felt as if I was meeting somebody new and exciting, and somebody who walked alongside me, because I enjoy a piece of whiskey now and then too.
Absolutely. I really thought I didn't like gin. It just turns out I don't like bad gin.
That is what I figured out several years ago, but thanks to my Brit friends.
I went to the liquor store and said, "Help! I'm trying to write about gin, but it's gross. Make me like gin." And he took me to the aisle and he deliciously introduced me to Uncle Val's Botanical Gin. It's a cucumber-forward gin with sage, lemon, and lavender in it. So it tastes like you're walking through a garden in Italy at midsummer.
It beats the pine tree.
Yes, it does. It does.
Such an excellent description, Amy. I immediately felt ice cubes in a shaker.
Yes.
Oh my.
If you like a Corpse Survivor, it's the best gin that I found for a Corpse Survivor, because the bright of the lemon and the brightness of the lemon in the botanical gin, perfect.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, everyone, I hope that you take time to maybe have a drink tonight, whether alcohol is involved or not. But I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and looking forward to having these more regular. We've only been sitting down maybe once a month, and if that, we've had some months in between, but I would like to do this more regular if we can. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you for being
Thank
so
you,
understanding.
Amy.
I did definitely not. I didn't expect that was how my day would go.
Well, thank you for being with us. I hope you come back on.
I love that.
Along with us
Yeah.
again.
We can talk about botanical drinks and fabulous things.
Maybe do a live demonstration on air.
I could totally do that. I
like that.
have done that.
That would be
We'll all
fun.
make a drink together. Sure.
Put me down for a Corpse Survivor.
Midnight margaritas.
Yes.
Perfect.
Who's the absinthe drinker?
What do you think of chartreuse too?
You know-
I love chartreuse.
You know who's in the most fabulous city with the best bartenders, though? It's Christian.
I
Yeah.
bet.
Christian's in NOLA.
Yeah, he is.
Oh my God, NOLA, baby, NOLA.
The best absinthe that I absolutely adore is called Vieux Carré. They're out of Philadelphia, and they were the first ones granted a license to brew absinthe after the ban was lifted after 95 years. But it's got a sweet tea finish, so you have a sip and you have that little breath in, and it tastes like a sweet tea. It's not obnoxious.
Ooh.
It's very warm and cultured. It's probably 85 proof instead of the 142 that I have from the Czech Republic.
Yeah, I'm still working on that foreign stuff right now.
Christian says Potions has great absinthe. Yeah, they still have
It
that.
is. It's a speakeasy.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. I know we've ran quite a bit over, but it was well worth sitting down and taking the time to talk to Amy tonight. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Nobody's watching 60 Minutes anymore. We're all boycotting CBS.
Right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.